Welcome back to Interesting and Educational Stories channel, where we bring history to life. Today we're exploring all the presidents of the United States, not just their names but their achievements, what they're famous for, and how they shaped the nation. From revolutionary leaders to modern-day decision-makers, each president has left a mark on history. So sit back, relax, and let's journey through America's leadership, from George Washington to Joe Biden. Let's dive in. Let's begin at the very start of the American story. George Washington, the first president of the United States, is often called the father of the nation. Before becoming president, he led the Continental Army to victory in the Revolutionary War, helping America win its independence from Britain. As president, he set important examples for future leaders, like stepping down after 2 terms and maintaining neutrality in foreign affairs. Washington also helped unite the country during its early, fragile years. His farewell address warned against political divisions and long-term alliances with other nations. Respected for his leadership and integrity, Washington remains one of the most admired figures in U.S. history. John Adams, the second president of the United States, played a key role in the American Revolution. He helped draft the Declaration of Independence and secured support from France during the Revolutionary War. As president, Adams avoided war with France during the XYZ affair, showcasing his commitment to peace. However, his presidency faced criticism for the Alien and Sedition Acts, which restricted free speech and targeted immigrants. He was also the first president to live in the White House. Adams believed in strong government and the rule of law, and his commitment to these principles helped shape the early United States. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, is best known as the author of the Declaration of Independence. During his presidency, he doubled the size of the country with the Louisiana Purchase, acquiring vast new territories from France. He also sent Lewis and Clark on their famous expedition to explore the Western lands. Jefferson believed in limited government, individual freedom, and education, founding the University of Virginia after his presidency. While admired for his commitment to liberty, his legacy is complex due to his ownership of enslaved people. Jefferson remains one of the most influential leaders in American history. James Madison, the fourth president, is often called the father of the Constitution for his central role in writing and promoting the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. As president, Madison led the nation during the War of 1812 against Britain, a conflict that proved America could defend its independence. His leadership during this time helped strengthen national unity and the country's reputation on the global stage. Madison also co-authored the Federalist Papers, which supported the Constitution's ratification. His dedication to creating a stable government and protecting individual rights left a lasting impact on the United States. James Monroe, the fifth president, is most famous for the Monroe Doctrine, a bold statement warning European nations to stay out of the Americas. This policy helped define U.S. foreign relations for decades. Monroe's presidency, often called the Era of Good Feelings, was marked by national unity and economic growth. He helped expand U.S. territory by acquiring Florida from Spain and played a role in the Missouri Compromise, which sought to balance free and slave states. Monroe's leadership in securing the nation's borders and promoting its interests solidified his place as an important figure in American history. John Quincy Adams, the sixth president, was the son of John Adams and a skilled diplomat. Before his presidency, he helped negotiate the Treaty of Ghent, ending the War of 1812, and was instrumental in drafting the Monroe Doctrine, which shaped U.S. foreign policy. As president, he promoted education, science, and national infrastructure projects like roads and canals. Though his presidency faced political challenges, Adams' later work in Congress as a fierce opponent of slavery earned him widespread admiration. He was one of the few presidents who made a significant impact after leaving office, fighting for justice and equality. Andrew Jackson, the seventh president, was known as the People's President for his efforts to expand democracy and empower ordinary citizens. A war hero from the Battle of New Orleans, Jackson brought a tough, no-nonsense style to politics. He is famous for opposing the National Bank, asserting federal authority during the nullification crisis, and reshaping the presidency to be more connected to the people. However, his legacy is marred by the Indian Removal Act, which forced Native Americans from their lands, leading to the Trail of Tears. Jackson's presidency marked a shift toward greater public involvement in government. Martin Van Buren, the eighth president, was the first president born as a U.S. citizen. He was a key architect of the Democratic Party and a skilled politician. His presidency was dominated by the Panic of 1837, a severe economic depression that defined his tenure. Van Buren worked to stabilize the economy by creating an independent treasury system, separating government funds from private banks. Though his efforts were overshadowed by the economic crisis, Van Buren's role in shaping modern political parties and his emphasis on limited government remain significant aspects of his legacy. William Henry Harrison, the ninth president, is best remembered for having the shortest presidency in U.S. history, lasting only 32 days before his death from pneumonia. A war hero known for his victory at the Battle of Tippecanoe, Harrison's campaign slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too, became iconic. His presidency was cut tragically short, but his election marked the rise of the Whig Party and symbolized a growing emphasis on appealing to the common voter through popular campaigns. John Tyler, the 10th president, was the first vice president to assume the presidency after the death of a predecessor. His administration is notable for annexing Texas, setting the stage for U.S. westward expansion. Tyler clashed with his own party, the Whigs, and vetoed many of their policies, leading to his eventual expulsion from the party. While his presidency faced criticism, his actions established important precedents for the vice presidency and succession. James K. Polk, the 11th president, is best known for overseeing the greatest territorial expansion of the United States during his single term. Through the Mexican-American War, he added present-day California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas to U.S. territory, fulfilling the vision of Manifest Destiny. Polk also settled the Oregon boundary dispute with Britain, securing the Pacific Northwest. Domestically, he established an independent treasury system and lowered tariffs to promote trade. Though highly effective, his expansionist policies increased tensions over slavery in new territories, contributing to sectional divides. Polk remains one of the most accomplished one-term presidents in U.S. history. Zachary Taylor, a war hero from the Mexican-American War, became the 12th president with no prior political experience. Known as Old Rough and Ready, his leadership in battle earned him national fame. As president, Taylor opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories, despite being a Southern slave owner himself. This position angered many Southerners during a time of rising sectional tensions. Taylor's presidency was cut short when he died unexpectedly after just 16 months in office. His untimely death left unresolved debates about slavery's expansion, further complicating the nation's path toward the Civil War. Millard Fillmore became the 13th president after the death of Zachary Taylor. His presidency is most remembered for the Compromise of 1850, a series of laws aimed at resolving tensions between free and slave states. While the compromise temporarily delayed the Civil War, its inclusion of the Fugitive Slave Act, which required escaped slaves to be returned to their owners, sparked widespread controversy and angered abolitionists. Fillmore also sought to expand U.S. trade, particularly with Japan, initiating the groundwork for future diplomatic relations. Though his presidency was marked by compromise, his policies left a deeply divided legacy. Franklin Pierce, the 14th president, is often criticized for his inability to ease tensions between the North and South. His support for the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed territories to decide whether to permit slavery, led to violent conflict in Bleeding, Kansas. This legislation further deepened national divisions over slavery. Pierce also sought to expand U.S. influence abroad, including attempts to acquire Cuba, though these efforts were unsuccessful. Personally, he faced great tragedy, losing all three of his children before or during his presidency. His leadership during this tumultuous period is widely regarded as ineffective in addressing the nation's growing crisis. James Buchanan, the 15th president, is often regarded as one of the weakest presidents due to his failure to prevent the Civil War. He believed that states did not have the right to secede, but also argued that the federal government could not stop them. leaving the Union in a precarious position. Buchanan supported the Dred Scott decision, which denied citizenship to African Americans, further inflaming sectional tensions. Despite his extensive political experience, including serving as Secretary of State, his presidency is remembered for inaction during a critical moment in U.S. history. He left office as the nation descended into war. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, is one of the most revered figures in American history. He led the nation through the Civil War, preserving the Union and abolishing slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. Lincoln's leadership, marked by his eloquence and determination, inspired hope during the nation's darkest hours. His Gettysburg Address remains a defining statement of American ideals. Tragically, Lincoln was assassinated shortly after the war's end, cutting short his plans for Reconstruction. His legacy as a symbol of freedom, equality, and national unity endures, making him one of the greatest presidents in U.S. history. Andrew Johnson became the 17th president after Lincoln's assassination and led the nation during the difficult Reconstruction period. A Southerner who remained loyal to the Union, Johnson sought a lenient approach to reintegrating the Confederate States, granting pardons to many Southern leaders. His policies angered radical Republicans in Congress, who wanted stronger protections for freed African Americans. Johnson's presidency is marked by his impeachment, the first in U.S. history, though he narrowly avoided removal from office. His inability to work effectively with Congress and his weak response to civil rights issues left a divisive legacy during this critical period. Ulysses S. Grant, the 18th president, was a celebrated Union general who helped secure victory in the Civil War. As president, he worked to protect the rights of freed African Americans during Reconstruction, supporting the 15th Amendment and using federal troops to combat groups like the Ku Klux Klan. However, his administration was plagued by corruption scandals involving members of his cabinet, overshadowing his achievements. Despite this, Grant's dedication to civil rights and his efforts to rebuild the South marked a significant era in U.S. history. His legacy has been reevaluated positively in recent years for his commitment to justice. Rutherford B. Hayes became the 19th president after a contested election resolved by a congressional commission. He is best known for ending Reconstruction by withdrawing federal troops from the South, a move that allowed white-dominated governments to regain control and disenfranchise African Americans. Hayes focused on civil service reform, seeking to curb corruption and promote merit-based government appointments. Though his decision to end Reconstruction is controversial, Hayes aimed to restore national unity after decades of conflict. His presidency marked the beginning of the Gilded Age, characterized by rapid industrialization and economic change. James A. Garfield served as the 20th president for only a few months before being assassinated. During his short time in office, he prioritized civil service reform, challenging the patronage system that allowed unqualified individuals to gain government jobs. Garfield also advocated for civil rights and sought to strengthen federal authority in the South. His assassination by a disgruntled office seeker shocked the nation and led to increased public support for reforming the civil service system. Though his presidency was tragically brief, Garfield's dedication to integrity and fairness left a lasting impact on American governance. Chester A. Arthur became the 21st president after James Garfield's assassination. Initially perceived as a party loyalist, he surprised many by championing civil service reform. Arthur signed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which established a merit-based system for federal jobs, reducing corruption in government appointments. He modernized the U.S. Navy and worked to streamline tariffs. While his presidency is often overlooked, Arthur's efforts to distance the government from political patronage and strengthen public institutions earned him respect. Though he did not seek re-election, his administration marked a period of quiet but meaningful reform in federal governance. Grover Cleveland, the 22nd and 24th president, is the only U.S. leader to serve two non-consecutive terms. In his first term, Cleveland earned a reputation for honesty and integrity, vetoing numerous bills he deemed wasteful. He advocated for fiscal conservatism, opposing unnecessary government spending, and fighting corruption. Cleveland also worked to lower tariffs, though this stance created political challenges. His leadership emphasized a limited government approach, focusing on maintaining economic stability. Though his presidency lacked dramatic events, Cleveland's commitment to principle over politics established him as a symbol of honesty during the Gilded Age. Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd president, served during a period of economic and territorial growth. His administration is notable for passing the McKinley Tariff, which raised tariffs to protect American industries, and the Sherman Antitrust Act, aimed at curbing monopolies. Harrison also expanded veterans' pensions and supported civil rights, though his efforts to protect African American voting rights were blocked by Congress. Under his leadership, 6 new states joined the Union. However, his economic policies, particularly high tariffs, contributed to public dissatisfaction. Despite losing re-election to Grover Cleveland, Harrison's presidency reflected a commitment to industrial growth and national development. In his second term, Cleveland faced the Panic of 1893, one of the worst economic crises in U.S. history. He defended the gold standard to stabilize the economy, a decision that alienated many in his party. Cleveland also used federal troops to suppress the Pullman strike, angering labor unions. While his economic policies drew criticism, he remained steadfast in his belief in limited government and fiscal responsibility. Cleveland's second term was marked by significant challenges, yet his commitment to principle over political expediency defined his leadership. He left office as a symbol of integrity in an era of corruption. The presidency of William McKinley, the 25th president, marked the United States' emergence as a global power. His leadership during the Spanish-American War resulted in the U.S. acquiring territories such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Domestically, McKinley supported protective tariffs and upheld the gold standard, fostering economic growth during a time of industrial expansion. Re-elected for a second term, McKinley was assassinated in 1901. His presidency symbolized a shift in America's role on the world stage, moving toward imperialism and international influence. McKinley's policies set the foundation for the modern, economically robust, and globally engaged United States. Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th president, was a transformative leader known for his progressive policies and dynamic personality. He championed the Square Deal, focusing on consumer protection, corporate regulation, and conservation. Roosevelt established national parks and monuments, preserving millions of acres of land. He played a pivotal role in building the Panama Canal, enhancing global trade. A Nobel Peace Prize recipient, he negotiated the end of the Russo-Japanese War. Roosevelt expanded presidential power and brought energy to the office, making him one of the most influential leaders in U.S. history. His charisma and reformist agenda defined the progressive era. William Howard Taft, the 27th president, is the only individual to serve as both president and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. As president, Taft focused on trust-busting, breaking up monopolies, and implementing tariff reforms. He strengthened federal regulatory powers and modernized the postal system. However, Taft's presidency was overshadowed by conflicts with Theodore Roosevelt, which split the Republican Party. After his presidency, Taft excelled as Chief Justice, a role he considered his true calling. His legacy reflects a dedication to law and administration, with significant contributions to both the executive and judicial branches of government. Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president, led the U.S. through World War I and championed progressive reforms at home. Domestically, he established the Federal Reserve, the Federal Trade Commission, and supported the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote. Internationally, Wilson proposed the 14 Points, outlining a vision for global peace, and played a key role in founding the League of Nations, though the U.S. Senate rejected its membership. Despite his achievements, his administration is criticized for its segregationist policies. Wilson's leadership during a transformative period in U.S. and global history left a complex but impactful legacy. Warren G. Harding, the 29th president, ran on a platform of a return to normalcy following World War I. His presidency focused on pro-business policies, reducing taxes, and limiting government regulation. Harding's administration established the Bureau of the Budget and advocated for disarmament with the Washington Naval Conference. However, his presidency was overshadowed by corruption scandals, including the infamous Teapot Dome scandal involving members of his cabinet. Harding's sudden death in office left many of these controversies unresolved. While personally popular during his lifetime, his administration's scandals have largely defined his legacy. Calvin Coolidge, known as Silent Cal, became the 30th president after Harding's death. He is remembered for his focus on small government and fiscal conservatism, reflecting the economic prosperity of the Roaring Twenties. Coolidge reduced federal spending, vetoed unnecessary legislation, and supported pro-business policies. His administration avoided international entanglements and prioritized domestic stability. While his policies contributed to short-term economic growth, critics argue that his laissez-faire approach may have contributed to the conditions leading to the Great Depression. Coolidge's quiet leadership and belief in limited government made him a symbol of conservative values during a prosperous era. Herbert Hoover, the 31st president, is best known for leading during the early years of the Great Depression. A skilled engineer and humanitarian, Hoover initially gained fame for organizing relief efforts during World War I. As president, he believed in limited government intervention and encouraged private sector solutions to economic problems. However, his response to the stock market crash of 1929 and subsequent economic collapse was widely criticized as insufficient. Hoover's presidency is often overshadowed by the widespread suffering of the Depression. Despite this, he later redeemed his reputation through post-presidency humanitarian efforts and public service. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd president, served an unprecedented 4 terms and is one of the most impactful leaders in U.S. history. FDR's New Deal programs helped lift the nation from the Great Depression, creating jobs, reforming financial systems, and providing social safety nets. He led the country through World War II, forming alliances that secured victory for the Allies. Roosevelt's fireside chats reassured Americans during times of crisis, and his vision shaped modern government's role in economic and social life. Despite facing challenges like polio, FDR's leadership redefined the presidency and left a lasting legacy of resilience and reform. Harry S. Truman became the 33rd president after FDR's death and made some of the most consequential decisions in U.S. history. He authorized the use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II. Truman also oversaw the Marshall Plan, which helped rebuild Europe, and the establishment of NATO to counter Soviet expansion. Domestically, he introduced the Fair Deal, advocating for civil rights and economic reforms. Truman's leadership during the start of the Cold War, including the Truman Doctrine to contain communism, defined his presidency. Known for his plain-spoken style, Truman left office with a complex but significant legacy. Dwight D. Eisenhower, a World War II hero, served as the 34th president during a period of peace and prosperity. His administration expanded infrastructure with the interstate highway system and strengthened social programs like Social Security. Eisenhower promoted Cold War containment policies, including the doctrine that promised U.S. aid to countries resisting communism. He also worked to reduce tensions with the Soviet Union and sought to end the Korean War. Domestically, Eisenhower enforced desegregation, sending federal troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, to protect African American students. His leadership balanced military strength and diplomacy, earning him widespread respect. John F. Kennedy, the 35th president, inspired a generation with his vision for a new frontier. He championed civil rights, launched the space race by setting the goal to land a man on the moon, and led the nation through the Cuban Missile Crisis, averting nuclear war. His administration also advanced economic growth and public service through programs like the Peace Corps. Tragically, JFK's presidency was cut short by his assassination in Dallas, Texas, in 1963. His charisma, eloquence, and calls for public action, like his famous quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you," cemented his legacy. Lyndon B. Johnson, the 36th president, is best known for his ambitious domestic agenda, the Great Society. He championed landmark civil rights legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which outlawed segregation and protected voting rights. Johnson's war on poverty expanded education, healthcare, Medicare and Medicaid, and social welfare programs. However, his presidency was overshadowed by the Vietnam War, which divided the nation and damaged his popularity. Johnson's dual legacy reflects both profound progress in social justice and the controversies of prolonged military conflict. Richard Nixon, the 37th president, is best known for opening diplomatic relations with China and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. His administration negotiated the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, SALT-I, and ended U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War through a policy of Vietnamization. Domestically, Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and advanced civil rights with measures like Title IX. However, his presidency was overshadowed by the Watergate scandal, which exposed abuses of power and led to his resignation in 1974, the first and only time a U.S. president has resigned. Nixon's legacy remains deeply controversial. Gerald Ford became the 38th president after Nixon's resignation and sought to restore trust in the government. His controversial decision to pardon Nixon for any Watergate-related crimes angered many Americans, but was intended to help the nation move forward. Domestically, Ford faced economic challenges, including inflation and unemployment, and promoted measures to curb government spending. He also signed the Helsinki Accords, improving U.S.-Soviet relations during the Cold War. Despite his efforts to unify the country, Ford lost the 1976 election to Jimmy Carter. His presidency is remembered as a transitional period focused on healing national divisions. Jimmy Carter, the 39th president, prioritized human rights and environmental conservation. Domestically, he faced economic struggles, including high inflation and unemployment. Carter brokered the Camp David Accords, achieving a historic peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. His administration also established the Department of Energy and expanded renewable energy initiatives. However, the Iran hostage crisis and ongoing economic challenges overshadowed his presidency. After leaving office, Carter became a globally respected humanitarian, earning the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for his work in promoting peace, democracy, and human rights. His post-presidency legacy is considered one of the most impactful in history. Ronald Reagan, the 40th president, ushered in a conservative revolution during his two terms. His economic policies, known as Reaganomics, emphasized tax cuts, deregulation, and increased defense spending, contributing to economic growth but also rising deficits. Reagan played a pivotal role in ending the Cold War, engaging in negotiations with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, and delivering his famous "Tear Down This Wall" speech. Domestically, Reagan focused on reducing government influence and promoted a strong military. While critics point to the growth of income inequality and deficits, Reagan remains one of the most influential conservative leaders in U.S. history. George H.W. Bush, the 41st president, is remembered for his foreign policy leadership during the end of the Cold War and the Gulf War. His administration oversaw the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, marking the end of decades-long tensions. Domestically, Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, expanding civil rights for disabled Americans. His leadership during Operation Desert Storm, a coalition effort to liberate Kuwait from Iraqi forces, showcased his diplomatic skill. Despite these successes, economic challenges and his decision to raise taxes led to his re-election loss in 1992. Bill Clinton, the 42nd president, presided over a period of economic prosperity marked by budget surpluses and job growth. His administration focused on welfare reform, balancing the federal budget and expanding international trade through agreements like NAFTA. Clinton also sought to improve healthcare access, though his universal healthcare plan failed. Internationally, he brokered the Dayton Accords to end the Bosnian War and expanded NATO. However, his presidency was marred by personal scandals, leading to his impeachment by the House of Representatives. Clinton was acquitted by the Senate and left office with high approval ratings, maintaining a legacy of economic achievement. George W. Bush, the 43rd president, led the nation through the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. His administration launched the War on Terror, including the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, to combat global terrorism. Domestically, Bush implemented tax cuts and expanded Medicare with prescription drug benefits. His leadership during Hurricane Katrina and the 2008 financial crisis drew criticism for perceived mismanagement. Despite these challenges, Bush focused on promoting democracy abroad and increasing security at home. His presidency remains controversial, with significant impacts on U.S. foreign and domestic policy. Barack Obama, the 44th president, was the first African American to hold the office. His administration focused on healthcare reform, resulting in the Affordable Care Act, ACA, which expanded healthcare access for millions of Americans. Obama also led the country out of the Great Recession with stimulus packages and financial regulations. Internationally, he ordered the operation that killed Osama bin Laden and worked to reduce nuclear weapons through the New START Treaty. Obama emphasized renewable energy and addressed climate change through international agreements. His presidency remains a symbol of progress and hope for many Americans. Donald Trump, the 45th president, is known for his unconventional leadership style and focus on America First policies. His administration prioritized tax cuts, deregulation, and renegotiating trade agreements, including replacing NAFTA with the USMCA. Trump's presidency also focused on immigration reform and appointing 3 Supreme Court justices. His leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic and challenges to the 2020 election results were highly divisive. Trump was impeached twice but acquitted both times. His presidency significantly reshaped American politics, leaving a deeply polarized legacy. Joe Biden, the 46th president, took office during the COVID-19 pandemic, focusing on vaccination efforts, economic recovery, and uniting a divided nation. His administration passed a historic infrastructure bill and sought to combat climate change through renewable energy investments. Internationally, Biden prioritized rebuilding alliances and leading NATO support for Ukraine during Russia's invasion. Domestically, he faced challenges such as inflation and immigration reform. Biden's leadership reflects decades of experience in public service, including 36 years in the Senate and 8 years as vice president under Barack Obama. And there you have it. From George Washington to Joe Biden, the presidents of the United States have each left their mark on the nation's history. Whether they led through war, economic hardship, or times of peace, each president shaped the story of America in their own unique way. We've explored their achievements, their challenges, and their legacies, some inspiring, some controversial, but all significant in the journey of this great nation. So which president's story stood out to you the most? Do you have a favorite, or perhaps one you want to learn more about? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to channel name. Hit that bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into history and leadership. Thank you for joining me on this journey through American history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious.